Now the first ones you got are today's questions. 1 Samuel 13, 20 through 29. Okay, you have not answered those, but you do have them. Okay, that's the pop quiz. And then the second set that you're being given, that's 1 Samuel chapter 14. Those are for next week. Next week. I'm kind of glad that they went ahead and did the class because I don't know that I really want to deal with Tamar's rape. Okay? Thank you. Let you deal with that. True or false? Tamar and Absalom were kinfolks of David. Is that true? In what way were they kin? To David. Absalom is David's who? Son. Through Maacah. And Tamar is David's daughter through who? Maacah. Okay? Now, Amnon is a half-brother to both of those individuals because he has David as his father, but a different who? Different mother. Okay, so there's kinfolks going on here. And Amnon, he had a liking for who? Tamar. At least he thought he did, didn't he? He had a lust for Tamar that he wanted to fulfill. And he did. And did that lust all of a sudden change? Yes. It's described as love at first, isn't it? And then after he forces himself upon her and rapes her, he then hates her with more hatred than that which he loved her with at the first, doesn't he? And so he sends her out of his house, and she returns to her home, or to her brother's home, Absalom's home, and there she resides for the rest of her life, doesn't she? So a very sad situation. In today's lesson, the second half of chapter 13, I've entitled it, The Revenge of Absalom. The Revenge of Absalom. And I've divided it into 5 sections. Number 1, the reactions to Tamar's rape. So Tamar is raped, she goes back home, and there is the reaction of Absalom, and there is the reaction of David to this rape. Okay, both react to the rape, and we talk about it. Number 2, there is a request to attend a sheep shearing. Have we talked about sheep shearing in this class before now? Yeah. Was that a big time of celebration? Yeah, huge time of celebration, right? The sheep are going to be sheared. There's going to be eventually money made off the sheep. And so it was just a big deal, big celebration, a lot of partying, a lot of eating, a lot of drinking. Yes, a lot of drinking. Number 3, revenge taken on Amnon. Okay, the revenge taken on Amnon. And then number 4, the report that upset David. And number 5, a return of the king's sons. So we're going to talk about those 5 sections in our lesson today. And when you go back and you read the text, maybe you can see how those points fit. Okay? I hope that you at least read the second half of the chapter. Maybe you did, and you'll be ready to do a little bit of this. When Absalom knew about the rape of Tamar, what 2 things did he say to her? Here's the verse. And Absalom her brother said unto her, Hath Amnon thy brother been with thee? Behold now thy peace, my sister. He is thy brother. Regard not this thing. Okay? He asked her, he knew something was wrong, did he not? And I find it interesting that he immediately knew what? He immediately knew she'd been raped, and what? By whom? Didn't she? So apparently this, it seems like Amnon up to this time had tried to be somewhat discreet, or at least he hadn't found opportunity to be with her, but yet for some reason Absalom immediately knows, Hath Amnon thy brother been with thee? Okay? And then he tells her two things. Number one, what does he say? Hold now thy peace. Watch this. For he is thy what? Thy brother, half-brother. Does that seem a little strange to you? What does he mean when he says, hold now thy peace? Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of what it sounds like, doesn't it? Sounds like, this is family issue. Don't say anything. Hold your peace. Don't say anything about it. Remember, he's your brother. Okay? And the second thing that he says is what? Regard not this thing. Wow. Is that the way we treat rape victims today? No, what's the first thing we tell a rape victim to do? You report it immediately, right? You tell the proper officials about whatever's transpired. He even tells her, regard not this thing. The word regard means to take to heart, listen to this, to make it the center. Okay? The act was a horrible ordeal. However, Absalom did not want his sister to center her life on that one tragedy. Okay? So don't tell anybody. And don't center your life around this tragedy that's happened to you. Okay? The first piece of advice sounds horrible. The second piece of advice seems impossible. Doesn't it? Let me ask you this. When tragedy strikes an individual, are there some times when individuals never get beyond the tragedy? Yeah, the tragedy now defines them as the individual, and they are the tragedy for the rest of their lives. Now, the second piece of advice sounds like what Absalom is trying to get her not to do. Okay, don't regard this. Don't make this the center of your life. Don't make this, the all in all of who you are. But the first one, hold your peace, for he is thy brother. Who cares if he's my brother? He's done wrong, hasn't he? And he's sinned against me. And he's violated me. But yet, she abides by the words of Absalom. Okay? It's almost amazing to us that he says that. Notice question 3. So Tamar remained blank in her brother Absalom's house. Desolate, yes. She remained desolate. That little word desolate means this: to stun, to grow numb, to devastate. To be desolate, to be deflowered. Okay? In other words, she lived with her brother in his house, never to marry, nor have what? Children. Okay? From this point on, she remained desolate in his household from that point forward. It would be a life of loneliness, wouldn't it? And it would be a life of less joy. Because what was the one thing in Israel that women desired? Yes, the birth of a son, and if not a son, at least a child, right? If you were barren, if you never have children, you were kind of shunned in society. And yet, that was what had happened to Tamar because of this rape. Now, here's something interesting. Okay? How did David react to the rape? Notice what it says. But when David heard all of these things, he was very wroth. That little word wroth, to grow, to blaze up in anger, to be hot, furious, burn, become angry, to be incensed. Now here's what's interesting. David was angry, but did nothing. Isn't that right? Do you read of anything David did to Absalom? To Amnon because of this? You don't read of anything. He's all been out of shape. He's upset. He's not just wroth, he's what? He's very wroth. And he's the who? He's the king. And he does nothing to discipline his children. Folks, I put down here this event ought to have angered David from two perspectives. Number one, he was lied to, wasn't he? Was he involved in this transgression? Yes, he was manipulated in it, was he not? Amnon was sick. David went to visit him, and Amnon said, what? You go tell my sister Tamar to come and make cakes for me and feed me. And so guess what? It was at David's request that she went. Now just think about that. David learns, I've just been used, haven't I? That in and of itself ought to enrage you. And secondly, an innocent girl has now been raped and David was used in the process. Folks, that would enrage me. Yet, David did nothing. Wow. Huh? Well, tell me what he did. Absalom, Amnon, he's just living his life, even after this, isn't he? You know, and as we read the chapter, we learn that somebody's going to take action, aren't we? And it wasn't who? It wasn't David. Okay, who's going to take action? And guess how long later? 2 years. 2 years. Okay, that's a long time, isn't it? Over in first, what's that?
Even a father would not want to kill his son for doing something bad.
Well, I agree. But she said even a father wouldn't want to kill his son for doing something bad. I agree. Okay? But there's several things, several factors here, two big ones. Okay? As the father, should he have disciplined the son?
Yes, maybe he did.
Okay? And as the king, he was required to carry out what? The demands of the law of Moses. Okay? We read of neither in the biblical text. Let's go to a passage. Turn over to 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 6. This has to do with another son, but I want you to see something about David. Okay? Bible says this, and his father had not displeased him at any time in saying, why hast thou done so? Okay? Now, we're also, later on in our study of 2 Samuel, we're going to learn about the death of Absalom. Who is Absalom? His son, right? Now, what did Absalom try to do? He tried to overthrow the kingdom, didn't he? And when they finally right the wrong and Absalom's on the run, he sends them out after Absalom, and guess what he tells them? Don't hurt the boy. Don't hurt him. Don't hurt him. He's tried to overthrow your kingdom, David. Don't hurt my boy. And then when he knew he was dead, what did he say? Oh, Absalom, my son, Absalom. Would that I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son. David's got a weak spot for who? For his kids. Okay? There's just some reason David isn't able to tell them no. He's not able to discipline them. He's not able to be the kind of father that he really needs to be. Folks, that's not in the case of one. That's in the case of three. Okay? 3 of them. And it's not just little stuff, you know. It's not like he broke a pot. It's not like he, broke a diamond off the king's crown. These guys have done some filthy stuff, haven't they? A rape and 2 overthrows of the kingdom? Don't hurt him. He is that. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And have we seen another man do this same thing? Samuel, folks, he had problems with his kids. Eli, remember Eli? Eli had the same kind of problem, and Eli, because of his problems, had the priesthood taken away from his lineage. Okay? Folks, these are big parental mistakes. They may be human, but they are huge parental mistakes. Okay? Our kids need to be disciplined, don't they? And their crimes need to be punished to the extent of the crime. And yet, sometimes it's hard for parents to do that, isn't it? Extremely hard for parents to do that. And what's that? Oh, Michael said it wasn't hard for his parents. He's been killed 3 times. Or I think the story goes like this. His mom says, "If I catch you, I'll kill you." He's just lucky she couldn't run as fast as he. What'd you say?
I was just saying, I started listening to you now after I forgot what I just said.
I do that.
If he had done anything as a king, if he's wise, he automatically makes it so that woman can never put that away. Once he does something committal like that, everybody's going to know.
Yep. It's tough, you know. It's a tough situation. So, now notice this next statement, okay? How did Absalom speak to his brother Amnon after the rape of Tamar? And Absalom spake unto his brother Amnon neither good nor what? Nor bad. Now, folks, these are the king's sons, right? Do you think they had positions of responsibility in the king's house? Oh yes, I bet you they had some responsibilities. And do you think that Amnon and Absalom's paths crossed from time to time? Yeah. But guess what? When Absalom saw Amnon, the Bible says he didn't speak good to him, and he didn't speak what? Bad to him. He just kind of what? Kind of left him alone, right? Okay? Now think about that. He didn't try to befriend him and become nice and sweet to him, but guess what he didn't do? He didn't run up to him, and you raped my daughter and blah, 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 all this stuff. Okay? He didn't do that. He just what? He just held his peace, didn't he? Neither good nor bad. True or false? Absalom hated Amnon because he had forced his sister Tamar. True, for Absalom hated Amnon. Hated him. But yet when he saw him, guess what he didn't do? He didn't speak good nor bad to him. But yet deep inside, he what? He hated him. Question. Can you understand Absalom's hatred for his brother? Pretty easy, isn't it? It involved the use of force. His action involved harming an innocent person. It involved destroying the life of his sister. It involved an act for which he received no punishment from the king. No punishment is meted out. Amnon is just able to keep doing whatever he wanted to do. Okay? And because of that, a deep hatred was in the heart of him for his brother. How much time passed from the rape when Absalom had sheep shearers in Baal-Hazor? 2 years. And it came to pass after 2 full years. Sometimes the Jews count time by partial years, okay? It could be a month and then 3 months into the next year, and they'll count that as 2 years. Here the Bible says it was a full 2 what? 2 years. 24 months. Question. Is that a long time? That's quite some time, isn't it? You know? I don't know about y'all. I forget a lot of things I did yesterday. You know? Oh, it's today. You know? 2 full years have passed. Let me ask you this. What do you think Amnon now thought about the rape of Tamar? Yeah. It's over. It's done. King's not mad. Absalom's not mad. Tamar's being taken care of by Absalom. Everything's okay. Okay? Yeah, put it all behind us. Let's just move forward, right? Absolutely. 2 full years. I put this down. It was time enough to allow Amnon to deceive himself into thinking that his crime would not be punished. Okay? I'm free. It's over. Who did Absalom invite to go with him to the sheep shearing? Yes, that Absalom had sheep shears in Hazor, which is beside Ephraim, and Absalom invited all the king's sons. Well, who was a king's son? It just happened that Amnon was one of them. Was he the only one? No. But he was what? One of them. Right? Now think about that. You need to get to who? To Amnon. But you don't want everybody to know you want to get to Amnon. So what do? You invite the family. Right? And it doesn't seem what? Yeah, it doesn't seem weird. There's nothing, what do you call it? There's just nothing that anybody would have any curiosity about, right? He just wants us all to come. We're all part of the family. It's a time of celebration. He's inviting the family to come. But he knows who will be there. Amnon. He knows that. I wrote this. Absalom is starting to work his plan. Okay? Folks, a plan he had developed over a 2-year period. Watch this. A plan that caused him to tell Tamar, hold thy peace. Okay? Now remember, when he told her that, hold thy peace, for he is thy brother, it sounded pretty crude, didn't it? Kind of rude. Well, guess what? From that very day, guess what? Absalom knew this man will not live if I have anything to say about it. Okay? Absolutely. 2 full years that hate was brewing in him. And he was hiding it, wasn't he? And now it's sheep shearing time. Now it's time for the invitation. I want all the king's sons to come with me. True or false? Absalom talked to David directly about the invitation. True. And Absalom came to the king and said, behold now, thy servant hath sheep shearers. Let the king, watch this, let the king, I beseech thee, and his servants go with thy servant. Who else does he want there? I want you to think about this. When his invitation goes out, he wants the king, he wants the king's sons, and he wants all the king's servants there to see what he's about to do. That's pretty potent. You know that? Most times if I'm going to kill a man, I think I'll do that in private. I don't want everybody to be there. Not for this. Okay? But he's invited them all, hasn't he? Now, we might say this. Was it just out of good manners that he invited the king and his servants? You see, it might have been that he knew the king would what? Yeah, decline the invitation. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it? For a king to go somewhere. Takes a lot of individuals to leave, a lot of individuals to go, a lot of individuals to protect him. And so he might knew that David would decline the invitation, right? But he also might think, well, at least he'll send who? His sons, right? Or he may have wanted David to be there. Mightn't he? Folks, if David has done nothing to this boy to discipline him, and now Amnon rises up and slays him right in front of his dad, what would he be telling his father? This is what you should have done. You didn't take care of this. Okay? And you should have. So he may have wanted his brothers and his dad to be there and witness the execution of this boy. I don't know. Okay? Larry?
Amnon and Absalom were both in line to inherit the kingdom.
May have played some part in it. May have. We don't read about that, but it could have. David agreed to go with Absalom. False. And the king said to Absalom, "Nay, my son, my plans are ruined. I figured I'd invite, they'd come, Amnon's there, and I could just kill him." And now David said what? "Nah, I don't think we'll come." Oh, well, why not? "Lest we be chargeable unto thee." And he pressed him. Howbeit he would not go, but blessed him. Notice the reason he says that he be not what? Chargeable to him. That little word chargeable means burdensome. Folks, David knew how difficult it would be to get him and all of his sons at a place where there's all these festive activities and keep him what? Keep him safe as the king. So guess what he says? No, we won't come. And notice what the text says. And he pressed him. Who's that? Absalom. He pressed him. This is my plan. Right? So he presses him. Come on, Dad. Y'all can do it. It's not going to be that big of a deal. Come on, be with us. It's going to be a great time. But he said what? No. Oh, man, my plan is falling apart. Who did Absalom specifically ask the king to allow to go with him? Oh, man. Then said Absalom, "If not, I pray thee, let my brother Amnon go with us." Man, he has just had to do what? Reveal his plan, hadn't he? Now, let's think about that for a moment. Okay? Why Amnon go with him? Who is Amnon? He's not the king, but he is the firstborn of the king. So would he be a wonderful representative of the king to attend? Yeah. Perfect representative. Well, David, if you can't go, then at least send the man who is in line for the kingship to be with us. Okay? Now that may have been why he asked for, or that may have been some of the reasoning that he asked for Amnon. We know the reasoning, don't we? The real reasoning. Now watch this. What question did David ask in regard to this request? And the king said unto him, "Why should he go with you?" Does David know what had happened in the past? Oh yeah, he knows. He was angry, wasn't he? And he knows whose sister it is. It's Amnon's sister. Absalom's sister. He knows all about it. Why do you want him to go? And what I find interesting is what? There's nothing said in the text about it. Okay? Nothing said in answer to that question at all. Other than we could reason what? As we just reasoned. Maybe he said, well, he's the first in line to become king. He'd be a wonderful representative. So why don't you just what? Let him go. Let me ask you something. When kids press you and press you and press you and press you and press you, do you finally yield? Nobody's ever done that in this audience. Okay? After about the 10th time, you say what? Go! Do whatever. Okay? Folks, Absalom was pressing David hard, and we need to understand how hard he was pressing him. David finally agreed to let his sons go to the sheep shearing. True. But Absalom pressed him that he let Amnon, watch this, and all the king's sons go with him. Now, he had only requested for who? Amnon. David let Amnon go and who? All of his sons. Now, Absalom may have never answered the question, why should he go with you? So what does David do? David says, okay, I'm going to let Amnon go, but he can't go unless who goes? Unless all the sons go. And maybe in David's mind he thought what? Yeah, if I let all of them go, then nothing will happen to Amnon. Maybe, I don't know what he thought. All I know is that not only Amnon went, but all of the sons went. What had Absalom instructed his servants to do to Amnon? Wait, right? Until his heart is merry with what? Wine. Folks, remember I told you that in order for us to determine the definition of the word wine in the biblical text, you have to look at what? The context. Now, John 2 gives us no indication in the context as to whether it was alcoholic or non-alcoholic. Well, there's no indication whatsoever, okay, other than, as we pointed out in the lesson not long ago, the person of Jesus. That's the only indication we have. Here I know it was what? Alcoholic wine. Now see, this is part of what? Sheep shearing. All the partying, right? So here the king's sons go, Amnon, he gets to drinking, and all of a sudden his heart is merry with wine. He's feeling good, right? Now what are the servants supposed to do? Larry said it. Take him out. That's not from the Bible. Okay? That's the gospel. That's 2 Samuel according to Larry. He said he would speak the word, smite Amnon, then kill him, and what? Fear not. Wow. Absalom's servants refused to carry out the will. Verse 15, number 15. Be blank and blank. Courageous and valiant. Folks, let me ask you something. Here are servants instructed to take out who? The king's son. The firstborn of the king's son. Let me tell you something. If I were given that instruction, I'd be scared. Wouldn't you? Kill the king's son? Are you kidding me? You know? And all the other sons are kill the king's son? You see, he's trying to do what? He's trying to encourage them, isn't he? He's trying to give them not only just confidence, but also reassurance that if you do this, nothing's going to happen. Okay? You do it. You be courageous. You be valiant. When I say smite him, you, as Larry said, take him out. Okay? Man. Absalom's servants refused to carry out the will of Absalom. False. And the servants of Absalom did unto Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Man, we could stop right here and have a long ethical study, could we not? Is this a command the servants should obey or not obey? Boy, they obeyed it, but the question is, should they have obeyed it? Because we're talking about what? We're talking about murder, aren't we? We're talking about the slaying of a man. We're also talking about a relationship between a master and who? Servants. And how far that relationship goes before a servant can say what? I'm not doing that. Okay? It was kind of like that question we talked about with regard to sending Uriah out into the field and having Joab withdraw from him, right? He knew he was going to be killed. He knew what was going to happen. Okay? So we could stop and talk about that a lot. All we know, though, is what? The servants obeyed, didn't they? And did exactly what should have been done. What did the king's sons do when Amnon was killed? They rose up against Absalom and they smote him, didn't they? No! They jumped on their mules and fled away. They jumped on their mules and fled. I might be what? Next. It ain't going to happen to me. Okay? I'm gone. If David sent those boys to protect him, it was the wrong protection. Okay? He should have sent his mighty men, shouldn't he? I'm telling you. What tidings came to David while his sons were in the way? All of them. And it came to pass that while they were in the way, the tidings came to David saying, Absalom hath slain all the king's sons, and there is not one of them left. Wow. They wept, didn't they? But there was a guy there, and he assured David that all the sons hadn't been killed, but only Amnon had been killed. Who was that? Jonadab. And he just happened to be near the king. Who is Jonadab? Have we already read about him? Yes. Y'all remember Jonadab? He was the one who helped Amnon plot the rape of who? Tamar. Now he knows that not all the king's sons are dead. He wasn't there. He was beside the king. He wasn't there. But he knew what? No, king, don't worry about this. You don't need to worry about this. There's only one of these guys dead. That's Amnon. The rest of your sons are alive. And he was close enough to the king when the news came to be able to tell him that. Jonadab is a creep, isn't he? Jonadab is an evil man. The Bible says he was very subtle. And he is also a man who does what? He takes advantage of opportunities, doesn't he? He's an opportunist, is what he is. And he was always involved in things that were evil. I bet you, if the truth were known, he helped plan the death of Amnon. You know what? Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm telling you. You're exactly right. And if people could make good television shows out of Bible stuff, you know, it would be unbelievable. You know what? One thing I want you to look at is verse 21, okay? This is something that Jonadab told David. It's question number 21. How long had Absalom determined to kill Amnon? For by the appointment of Absalom, this hath been determined from the day that he forced his sister Tamar. Basically what he was telling Tamar is this: hold your peace, I'll take care of this. And did he? Oh yes. Did he have to flee though? Yes, he fled, didn't he? Fled to a man by the name of Talmai, Talmai. Does anybody know who that is? That's his granddaddy. That is his mother's father, okay, that he fled to. And he stayed there for what? We'll find out next time, okay? Do your questions. You got them now. Don't cry, okay? Got your questions for next week. Thank you.